All right, so today we are going to take a deep dive into positive feedback, and we're going to be using the Supervisor's Guidebook.
Okay.
And we're really going to look at this as it applies to the field of applied behavior analysis, or ABA for short.
Got it.
And, I think a lot of times we assume that people who work in this field are driven purely by passion.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality of direct support work, I think, can be much more complex.
Yeah, and I think what's really fascinating about that is that we often overlook the practicalities of those roles.
Right.
Direct support work, like an ADA, can be so demanding, both physically and emotionally,
Right.
dealing with challenging behaviors, often repetitive tasks,
Absolutely.
and carrying the emotional weight of supporting individuals with very unique needs.
Yeah.
So it's not always sunshine and rainbow.
No, it's not always about, some deep-seated calling.
Right.
People need jobs.
Yeah.
And this is a field that offers a lot of jobs.
Absolutely.
But, it's so crucial to recognize that potential for burnout if the environment isn't supportive.
Yeah.
Yes.
And speaking of support, what about the impact of supervisors?
Oh, for sure.
We've all had those bosses who rely on criticism and punishment,
Oh, yeah.
and it just creates this toxic us versus them dynamic.
Yes.
And so I think in ABA it gets even trickier, right? Because direct
Absolutely.
support staff are often receiving guidance from multiple clinicians.
Absolutely.
So you can imagine trying to juggle instructions from all these different people
Right.
with their own styles and their own priorities.
Mm-hmm.
It's a recipe for confusion and frustration.
Absolutely.
So, okay, we've got this potentially challenging work environment.
Yes.
Where does positive feedback come into play? I feel like sometimes it's seen as just this fluffy extra, but
Right.
but you're saying it's actually crucial.
Oh, it's so crucial.
Yeah.
It's a game changer. It really is.
Oh.
Positive feedback it's like rocket fuel
Oh.
for motivation and job satisfaction.
Okay.
When staff feel valued and appreciated, they're much more likely to stick around.
Yeah. Which means less turnover for organizations.
Oh, absolutely.
And a more experienced workforce to provide those services.
Not just about making people feel good.
Right.
It actually has an impact on the quality of care
100%.
that's being provided, which is huge.
Yeah, it's huge.
Yeah.
And it's not just about saying good job either.
Right.
We're talking about specific descriptive feedback
Mm-hmm.
that lets staff know exactly what they did well.
Got it.
So, for example, instead of
Mhm.
just saying, great work with the client today, you might say something like, I noticed how you patiently used visual supports to help the client transition between activities.
Okay.
That was a really effective strategy.
So you're moving beyond vague praise
Exactly.
and really painting a picture of what success looks like.
100%.
Yeah.
And the beauty of all of this is that there's actually an evidence-based protocol for providing this kind of feedback that takes the guesswork out of it. And it gives supervisors a really clear roadmap.
Okay, I am all about practical tools.
Okay.
So break it down for me. What's step one?
Okay, so step one is all about setting the tone. Feedback sessions can be nerve-wracking for anyone.
Right.
So starting off with a positive or an empathetic statement can really help to ease anxiety.
Yeah.
So it could be something like, I really appreciate your hard work on this case, or I know this has been a really challenging week, so thank you for your dedication.
It's like you're creating that safe space for feedback
Exactly.
and not making it feel like a performance review.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Then you move into the specifics.
Okay.
So like we were talking about before, instead of that vague praise, you pinpoint exactly what the staff member did well.
Got it.
This not only reinforces the positive behavior, but it also provides really clear guidance for future performance.
So in our earlier example, instead of just saying good job with the client's teaching program, you might say something like, I saw how you seamlessly adjusted your prompting levels based on the client's responses.
Yes.
That's exactly what we're aiming for with the least to most prompting strategy.
Perfect example.
Okay, perfect.
And if there are any areas for improvement, you address those with the same level of specificity.
Okay.
So clearly explain what needs to change and how to make the correction.
So it's not about criticizing.
Right.
It's about coaching them towards improvement.
Exactly.
I like that.
And a crucial part of this coaching process is encouraging questions.
Oh, yeah.
And clarifying any misunderstandings.
Right.
You want staff to feel comfortable speaking up and making sure that everyone is on the same page.
It creates a more collaborative environment
Yes.
and shows that you respect their input.
Absolutely.
I like that.
To wrap up the session, you always want to let staff know when the next feedback session will be. This creates predictability, and it reinforces the importance of that ongoing support.
Yeah, it takes away that element of surprise that can make those formal feedback sessions so stressful.
Absolutely.
So this protocol sounds great in theory, but I imagine there are situations where it's tricky to apply.
Sure.
Like, what if you have to give feedback to someone who's older than you?
Okay.
Or more experienced than you?
That's a common concern, especially for newer supervisors.
Yeah.
But remember, the protocol is your secret weapon here.
Okay.
It provides that clear structure that you can rely on.
Right.
Which can boost your confidence.
Yeah?
Even if you're feeling a bit intimidated.
So it's almost like having a script to follow.
Yeah, kind of.
Until you find your own voice as a supervisor.
Exactly.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And don't forget, giving feedback is a skill that develops with practice.
Right.
The more you use the protocol, the more comfortable and proficient you'll become.
It makes me wonder how many organizations just promote people based on their clinical skills.
Oh, yeah.
Without providing any training on how to be an effective supervisor.
Mm-hmm.
Because just because you're good at your job doesn't mean you're going to be good at managing people.
100%. That's a really insightful observation.
Yeah.
And it highlights a critical gap in professional development.
Right.
Supervisory skills are distinct from clinical skills. And they need to be taught and nurtured.
Yeah, absolutely.
For sure.
Okay, so let's say you're using this feedback protocol.
Okay.
And you encounter a staff member who gets defensive.
Sure.
Or starts arguing. How do you handle that?
That's where staying calm and sticking to the protocol becomes even more important.
Okay.
Acknowledge their concerns, but without getting drawn into a debate.
Right.
Remember, your goal is to provide constructive feedback, not to win an argument.
It's so easy to get pulled into the emotion of the moment.
It is.
Yeah. But you're saying it's crucial to kind of detach a bit.
Yes.
And stay focused on the objective.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And this might seem obvious, but your feedback needs to be genuine.
Right.
If you don't genuinely care about the staff member's performance and want to help them grow, it will show.
Right.
And the feedback will fall flat.
Authenticity is key.
Yes.
People can spot a phony a mile away.
100%.
And if they sense that you're not being sincere,
they're
not going to take it to heart.
Right. They're not going to buy it.
Right. Exactly.
Exactly.
And finally,
yeah.
Pay attention to how staff respond to feedback.
Yes.
Some people thrive on directness.
Yes.
While others need a more gentle approach.
Absolutely.
So adjust your style.
Yes.
To meet their individual needs.
To meet their needs, yeah.
And make the feedback more meaningful.
That's a crucial takeaway.
Yeah.
Feedback is most effective when it's personalized.
Right.
And delivered in a way that resonates with the recipient.
So it's not a one-size-fits-all approach.
Not at all.
You have to be adaptable.
Be adaptable, yeah.
And tailor your style to each person. Okay, so we've talked a lot about formal feedback sessions.
We have.
What about those everyday moments when you see a staff member doing something well?
Yes.
Do those informal interactions matter as much?
Oh, 100%.
Okay.
Don't underestimate the power of informal feedback.
Yeah.
A quick compliment, a pat on the back, or even just a smile and a nod of acknowledgement can make a world of difference.
It's those little moments of positive reinforcement.
Yes.
That can really, like, brighten someone's day.
Yes.
And keep them motivated.
Absolutely. And make positive feedback a daily habit.
Yeah.
Just look for opportunities to praise staff performance throughout the workday.
Okay.
It doesn't have to be this big production. Just a quick, sincere acknowledgement can go such a long way.
And what about written feedback?
Okay.
I know a lot of organizations rely on, like, those annual performance reviews, but those can feel so impersonal and distant. Is there a way to incorporate more regular written feedback?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Written feedback is great because it provides a permanent record of appreciation. It's something that staff can refer back to.
Right.
Especially on those tough days.
Yeah.
When they need a little reminder of their value.
It's like a tangible reminder.
Yes.
That their hard work is seen and appreciated.
Exactly.
But be careful not to rely solely on written feedback.
Right.
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 Face-to-face interactions are still essential.
Absolutely.
For building rapport, gauging reactions, making those personal connections.
Right.
So it's about finding the right balance between kind of the formality of written feedback and that personal touch of verbal communication.
Yes.
Okay.
Maybe consider combining vocal and written feedback for like significant achievements to really maximize the impact.
Like a verbal thank you followed up with a handwritten note.
Yes.
Or email expressing your appreciation.
That's a great idea.
Okay, good.
It shows that you're putting thought and effort into acknowledging their accomplishments.
Okay, so we've talked about individual feedback.
Right.
Both formal and informal.
Yes.
And we've touched on written feedback.
Yes.
What about group feedback?
Okay.
When is it appropriate to, praise a whole team?
Yeah, so group feedback can be a fantastic way to boost morale and encourage teamwork.
Yeah.
But there's a catch.
Okay.
It only works if everyone truly deserves the praise.
Right.
If you commend the entire group, when some members haven't, pulled their weight,
right,
it can feel really unfair
yeah,
to those who really went above and beyond.
You risk undermining the efforts of those who truly excelled.
Exactly.
So if you're going to praise the team, make sure it's for a genuinely collaborative effort.
Yes.
Where everyone contributed meaningfully.
Right. You have to have a clear understanding of individual contributions before offering that group feedback.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And sometimes, instead of directly observing staff actions, it's easier and more effective to praise the results of their work.
Okay.
This is called outcome-based feedback.
Oh, outcome-based feedback.
Yes.
Tell me more.
So let's say a team has been working on teaching a client to get dressed independently instead of, observing every step of the teaching process.
Right.
You might notice that the client is now getting dressed on their own every morning.
Right.
And you can commend the team for this positive outcome.
So you're shifting the focus from the specific actions to the impact of their efforts.
Exactly.
Right.
It's especially useful for tasks that have a clear, observable impact on the client's well-being or even on the work environment.
Right.
And it can be so motivating for staff because it shows them the real-world value of their work.
This deep dive into positive feedback has been eye-opening so far.
Good.
We've covered a lot of ground, from the importance of feedback to specific strategies for providing it effectively.
Right.
But before we move on,
yes,
I'm curious to hear your take on.
Before you do, I think it's crucial to emphasize that positive feedback isn't about sugarcoating or avoiding difficult conversations.
Okay.
It's about creating a foundation of support and appreciation that makes it easier to address challenges when they arise.
That's a really crucial point.
Yeah.
It's not about ignoring problems or pretending everything is perfect.
Exactly.
It's about building that foundation of trust and respect so that when constructive criticism is needed, it's received as guidance, not as an attack.
You hit the nail on the head. Yeah. When there's a consistent pattern of positive reinforcement, staff are more likely to be receptive to those corrective comments because they know it's coming from a place of support.
So it's about finding that balance.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
You don't want to overload people with praise to the point where it loses its meaning.
Right.
But you also don't want to create a culture of fear where they're afraid to make mistakes.
Yeah. Exactly. It's about being intentional and thoughtful with all feedback. The positive and the corrective. Yeah. And it's an ongoing process. You're always observing, evaluating, providing feedback as needed.
Okay, before we got sidetracked,
I
was curious about publicly posted feedback.
Okay.
I've seen some organizations that will post, positive notes about staff on a bulletin board.
Right.
Or share shout-outs on social media. What are your thoughts on that?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
Public recognition can be a very powerful motivator. Think about how good it feels to have your hard work acknowledged in front of your peers.
Yeah.
It can be a real morale booster.
It's like a public display of appreciation.
It is.
Which can be really validating.
Yes.
Yeah.
But there are some potential downsides to consider.
Okay.
First and foremost is privacy.
Right.
Not everyone is comfortable with having their performance, even positive performance, broadcast publicly.
Yeah, I can see how that could feel like being put on the spot.
Yes.
Even if the feedback is positive.
Exactly.
And you also risk creating unhealthy competition.
Yes.
Or resentment.
Yeah.
Among staff.
Right.
If some people are constantly receiving that public praise while others aren't, it could breed negativity.
Yeah, you don't want to create this hierarchy where some people feel valued and others feel overlooked.
I hadn't considered that.
It's definitely something to be mindful of.
And then there's the issue of control.
Yes.
Right. When you post something publicly,
you
lose control over how it's interpreted or discussed. People might make comments that are hurtful or inappropriate, even if the original feedback was well-intentioned.
Right, you're opening up Pandora's box.
That's an opening Pandora's box, yeah.
You never know what might come out.
So if you're going to use publicly posted feedback, proceed with caution.
Proceed with caution, yes.
Make sure there's a strong culture of respect and support.
Yes.
And be very mindful of individual preferences around privacy.
100%.
So maybe it's something to use sparingly.
Yeah.
And strategically. Rather than as a regular practice.
I like that, yeah. Powerful tool, but needs to be used thoughtfully.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground on feedback in general.
Yes.
Let's shift gears and talk about the specific skills involved in giving effective feedback.
Correct.
You mentioned earlier it's a learned skill. What are some key things that supervisors need to learn and practice?
Well, first and foremost, supervisors need to be skilled in the tasks they're providing feedback on. You can't effectively coach someone on something that you don't understand yourself.
That makes perfect sense.
Right.
It's like trying to teach someone to swim if you've never been in the water.
Exactly.
So if you're supervising staff who are implementing behavior plans, you need a solid grasp of behavior analysis, principles and procedures. You need to be able to model the skills that you're expecting them to demonstrate.
100%.
So it's not just about managing. It's about mentoring and teaching. You're guiding your staff towards mastery.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
And beyond that fundamental knowledge, supervisors need to hone those specific feedback skills. They need to learn how to observe behavior objectively, pinpoint those areas of strength and areas for improvement, and deliver that feedback in a clear, concise, and constructive manner.
It sounds like active listening.
Oh, yes.
Plays a huge role here.
Absolutely.
You need to be able to hear what your staff are saying, both verbally and non-verbally, and tailor your feedback accordingly.
Absolutely. Effective feedback is a two-way street. It's not about lecturing or dictating. It's about engaging in a dialogue
where both parties feel heard and respected.
This makes me think about how important it is for supervisors to be aware of their own communication styles. And how that might impact their staff.
That's such a fantastic point.
Because we all have our own communication quirks.
Oh, we do.
And it's crucial to be self-aware, especially when you're in a position of authority. Like if you tend to be very direct in your communication style, you might need to soften your approach when giving feedback to someone who's more sensitive or less confident.
Absolutely.
So flexibility and adaptability are key.
They are.
You can't just try to fit everyone into the same mold.
Exactly. And remember, providing feedback is a skill that can be learned and improved upon with practice. The more you do it, the more comfortable and confident you'll become.
It's like any other skill. Practice makes perfect.
It does.
Are there any specific resources or training programs
that you recommend for supervisors who want to develop these skills?
Absolutely. There are tons of great resources available, books, workshops, online courses, a lot of professional organizations like the Association for Behavior Analysis International offer training specifically on supervision in ABA.
Awesome. I'll make sure to include links to some of those resources in the show notes for our listeners.
Great.
This has been such a rich conversation so far.
Good.
We've covered so much ground on positive feedback, from its importance to specific strategies and skills. But before we wrap up this section of our deep dive, I want to circle back to something you mentioned earlier. This idea of sincerity.
Oh, yes.
It's absolutely vital that your feedback comes across as genuine and authentic.
It is.
If staff sense that you're just going through the motions or saying what you think they want to hear, they won't take it seriously.
They won't. They'll see right through it.
Sincerity is everything.
It is.
When it comes to feedback,
it really is.
It's about making people feel truly seen and appreciated.
And valued, absolutely.
And sometimes that means going beyond just the basic good job. Think about ways to get creative with your positive feedback.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, I love that idea.
Okay.
Let's brainstorm some ways to, spice things up.
Okay.
What are some things that supervisors can do to make their staff feel truly valued and appreciated?
So think beyond just verbal praise.
Okay.
Have you considered incorporating public displays of appreciation?
Ooh, like what?
Maybe like a shout out at a staff meeting or a certificate of achievement.
I like those ideas.
And what about handwritten thank you notes?
Oh, I love a handwritten note.
Me too.
Those always feel so personal and thoughtful.
They do.
They can keep those too.
Yes.
It's a lasting reminder of their value.
Exactly.
What about like small personalized gifts?
That's a great idea. Think about things that align with the staff member's interests or hobbies.
Yeah.
It shows that you're paying attention to them as individuals, not just as employees.
I love that.
It's about going the extra mile to make the recognition feel personal and meaningful.
And it doesn't have to be expensive.
No, not at all.
Right.
Yeah.
A small gift card to their favorite coffee shop or bookstore can be a really thoughtful gesture.
Absolutely.
These are all fantastic ideas.
Good.
We've talked about public displays of appreciation.
Yes.
Handwritten notes, personalized gifts. Any other creative strategies you recommend?
Well, one thing I've seen work really well is creating like a wall of fame or something similar to showcase staff achievement.
Okay.
It could feature photos, maybe descriptions of their accomplishments, or even thank you notes from clients or families.
That's such a cool idea.
It is.
It creates this visual reminder of the positive impact that staff are making. And it fosters a sense of pride and community.
100%.
And it can be a great conversation starter for visitors or new staff members.
Absolutely.
It helps to solidify that culture where positive feedback is celebrated and shared.
Exactly.
I'm getting so many ideas from this.
Good.
I feel like I need to completely revamp my approach to feedback.
That's the spirit.
Remember,
Yes.
positive feedback is an investment.
It is?
You're investing in your staff,
Yes.
their well-being, and ultimately the quality of services you provide.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
This has been incredibly insightful.
Good.
I feel like I have a whole new perspective
Good.
on the power of positive feedback.
Wonderful.
Before we wrap up this part of our deep dive,
Yes.
I wanted to get your thoughts on how to approach feedback when you haven't actually observed the performance directly.
Okay.
Let's say you're a supervisor, and a parent tells you about how amazing one of your staff was. In handling a challenging situation with their child,
Yeah.
how do you pass along that positive feedback
Okay.
in a way that is, meaningful and impactful?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
It's so important to celebrate those wins, even if you didn't witness them firsthand.
Right.
One approach is to share that feedback directly with the staff member,
Okay.
letting them know that you received positive feedback from the parent.
Got it.
You could say something like, hey, I heard from parent's name about how incredibly patient and supportive you were with client's name during that difficult situation the other day. They were so impressed with how you handled it.
Yeah.
And I wanted to let you know how much I appreciate your dedication and skill.
That's so much more powerful than just saying, good job.
That's exactly.
You're conveying the specific feedback from the parent.
Yes.
And it makes it more personal and meaningful.
And it underscores the importance of their role in the client's life.
Yeah.
It shows that their actions are having a positive impact.
Right.
Not just on the client,
Right.
but also on the family.
It's like you're creating this ripple effect
Exactly.
of positivity.
Yes.
The staff member feels appreciated. The family feels heard.
Yes.
And it strengthens the overall therapeutic relationship.
Absolutely.
And you can take it a step further by asking the staff member to share their perspective
Oh, I love that.
on the situation.
Yes.
You might say, I'd love.
I'd love to hear more about how you approached that situation. What strategies did you use?
Yeah.
What were some of the challenges you faced?
That opens up such a fantastic opportunity for learning and growth.
It does.
It shows that you value their expertise
Yes.
and you're invested in their professional development.
Absolutely.
And it also helps to kind of solidify that positive behavior
Yes.
by reflecting on their actions and the positive outcome.
Right.
They're more likely to repeat that behavior in the future.
Exactly.
This has been such a fantastic deep dive. We've covered so much ground on positive feedback.
We have.
From the why to the how, as we're kind of wrapping up this episode.
Yes.
Is there a final thought or takeaway?
I think the key takeaway is this.
Okay.
Positive feedback is a fundamental ingredient for creating a thriving and supportive work environment. Not just in ABA, but in any field.
Yeah.
It's not just about making people feel good.
Right.
It's about cultivating a culture of appreciation, recognition, and continuous improvement.
So well said.
And remember, positive feedback is a skill that can be learned and honed.
Absolutely.
The more you practice, the more impact you'll have on your staff and your clients.
That's right.
So go out there and spread some positivity.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into positive feedback.
You're welcome.
We'll see you next time for another insightful exploration.